What secret does a 95-year-old legend finally share about his own son? That question pulled me down a rabbit hole. Hi, I'm Sarah Reed, and you're watching Golden American Legends. Clint Eastwood is a living giant. Dirty Harry, Unforgiven, The Bridges of Madison County. And here's the twist, at 95, he's still not done. He just directed Juror Number Two in 2024, and he still tells filmmakers, do something new or stay at home. That line stuck with me. It sounds fearless, but away from the set, there's a quieter, more human story he rarely let out. I wanted to know what he finally said about his son, Scott. So I pulled old magazines, scrolled decades of interviews, and dug through photo archives. I kept seeing the same thing: the tough guy everyone knows, the artist who keeps pushing, and a family life kept mostly behind a curtain. Here's my hook for you. If Clint is still creating new work at 95, what has he kept silent about at home? And why speak now? What would you ask Clint Eastwood if he was in the room? Drop it below. Let's rewind for context, because the answer starts with the size of his family and the one son he rarely mentioned by name. Stick with me, the trail gets personal fast. 8 kids. Yes, 8. That number made me stop. We picture Clint in a cowboy hat or behind a camera, not at a crowded family table. But he is father to 8 children, from his eldest, Lori, born in 1954, to his youngest, Morgan, born in 1996. That's a vast lifetime line. Different partners, different eras. Count the birthdays and you can feel the distance travel can create. Clint has said the early years were all work, work, work. He chased projects around the world. Later, he admitted he became a much better father. He even said, speaking about Morgan, "My daughter takes precedence over everything. You appreciate a lot more when you get to my age." To me, that sounds like a man looking back and wishing he could rewind a few scenes. Here's what kept nagging me as I read and reread those interviews. When Clint talked about being a better dad later on, he highlighted the youngest. But what about the older kids who grew up during his busiest years? What about the son who shares his last name and his job title, Scott Eastwood? That's our next stop. Who is Scott? What did childhood look like under a famous father? And did those lessons bring them closer or push them apart? So, who was Scott before the spotlight? Picture a kid born in 1986 in Monterey, California, to Clint Eastwood and flight attendant Jocelyn Reeves. Picture that kid being dragged around to movie sets, long days, bright lights, quiet corners in the shadow of a director's chair. Scott later said, "My dad was always super active and got me in the gym at a young age. Healthy body, healthy mind." That is classic old school Clint. Keep moving, stay strong, do the work. I can almost see a younger Scott watching his dad block a scene, then heading to a dusty hotel gym after wrap because that's what dad expects. Growing up like that gives you an edge. It also gives you pressure. Imagine being the kid everyone recognizes, but who still has to prove himself over and over. Did those workouts and long set days create a bond? Or did the grind keep them from talking about the bigger things? Feelings, time, love? This is where the story tilts, because even with all that exposure to Hollywood, Scott didn't coast. He earned his way, sometimes right in front of his father, and sometimes far outside Clint's orbit. Let's see how he did it, on his own terms. Here's my honest take. Nothing was handed to Scott. He hustled. He fought for parts. He landed a small role in Gran Torino in 2008, then pushed into his own lane with films like The Longest Ride, Pacific Rim, Suicide Squad, and The Fate of the Furious. He even popped up in Snowden. That's a lot of hours in casting rooms. A lot of thank you next. The family rules were strict too. Scott has joked about his first car, a used 1991 Ford Crown Victoria that cost $1,000. After that, he had to earn every other car himself. You can hear the lesson: work first, comfort later. Clint also nudged him toward directing, basically saying acting can be feast or famine, and if you're not creating your own material, you're just fighting for scraps. Scott even admitted he had the desire to go to the other side. That's mentorship. But it's also a little distant, isn't it? It sounds like a boss giving a pep talk, not a dad checking in after a long day. Career-wise, Scott proved he could stand, But what about heart-wise? Did this tough love system build closeness or leave space between them that neither one knew how to cross? Let me paint two frames. Frame 1, Gran Torino. Clint directs, Scott appears. It's a proud moment, and you can feel the subtext. Father and son sharing the screen, even if only briefly. Frame 2, the Mule premiere in 2018. Scott stands beside Clint. Siblings Allison and Kyle are there, and Clint's first wife, Maggie Johnson, shows up too. Smiles, flashes, family on display. Those images look warm. They suggest a steady relationship. But I kept noticing something strange while I went through premiere photos and press clippings. Behind the smiles, they didn't say much about each other. There were virtually no interviews where Clint talked at length about Scott or where Scott told stories about his dad beyond work. It's like their public handshake stood in for a private conversation that never happened. Quick pause. If you love deep human stories from classic Hollywood, hit subscribe to support our work here on Golden American Legends. It helps us keep digging for moments like these. Okay, back to it. The red carpet showed unity. Still, the record stayed quiet, which leads to the odd part of this tale, the long stretch of silence that even fans, reporters, and family watchers found hard to explain. Here's the part that made me lean forward, the quiet. For years, neither Clint nor Scott opened up about their relationship. No fireside chat on a late-night show, no father-side magazine cover with a big reunion headline, nothing. I searched transcripts, old press junkets, award speeches. I rewatched behind-the-scenes footage hoping to catch a small aside. It wasn't there. That absence says a lot. Most famous families let at least one story slip, a funny holiday moment, a small thank you on stage. But here, we got almost zero. That doesn't mean a fight. It just means that whatever needed to be said, a praise, a regret, a simple I love you, wasn't said in public. So the mystery grew. If not anger, what kept them quiet? Habit? Pride? Fear of getting emotional? And why, after all that time, would anything change? Because it did change. At 95, with a life few can imagine, Clint started looking back. And when he did, the workhorse director finally stepped out of the edit bay and into a harder place, a face-to-face talk with his son. Why now? That's the turning point. At 95, most people do a life review. Clint has said you appreciate life more when you're older. He's a grandfather now. Francesca's son, Titan, arrived in 2018, and he's seen marriages end and chapters close. Those milestones can soften even the steadiest person. There's another clue. Not long ago, a fake interview about Hollywood made the rounds online. Clint publicly denied it and talked instead about originality and making new work. That told me something. He is careful with his words, and when he speaks, it's on his terms. He'd rather set the record straight than let rumors run wild. Put those pieces together, and it feels clear. The man who built his life on set calls, quiet focus, and iron routines finally wanted to say what matters most outside the studio. He wasn't promoting a film. He wasn't giving a stump speech. He was ready to be a father first. So what came out when he finally sat with Scott? The answer is simple, human, and heavy with years. This moment wasn't filmed. No lights, no press line, just a private talk that family insiders later described. They say Clint let the armor drop. He told Scott he knew he wasn't there enough when it mattered. He said he wished he had shown up more. He was proud of the man Scott became anyway. He wanted to make up for lost time, however much time is left. I imagine the voice we know so well from his films, only softer now. Not the gruff one-liner, the careful one, the kind a father uses when he's asking for another chance. There was even a word some recall Clint using about Scott, survivor. That's a big word. It admits the road wasn't easy for the son of a legend. For me, that's the heart of it, not a quote for a poster, a simple admission and a promise. After decades of distance, he reached out. Which brings us to Scott. How did the son, who grew up proving himself, handle an apology that arrived in the 9th inning? The response, I'm told, was quiet, and it mattered. Scott has never chased drama. He keeps his head down, works, and lets his resume do the talking. So when the apology came, reports say he didn't make a scene. He thanked his dad, he gave a hug, he let the words land. People close to the family say he made it clear he loved and respected Clint no matter what had happened before. That tracks with everything we've seen from Scott in public. When he talks about his father, it's often about discipline, training, and work ethic. Healthy body, healthy mind. No finger pointing, no scorekeeping. That mindset makes forgiveness easier. It turns a long shadow into relief. I pictured two men who share a last name and a jawline, letting the past breathe. No big speeches, just a door opening. The son who paid his dues, the father who finally said the thing he'd held back. Now the question becomes bigger than one family. When legacies shift this late, what carries forward? The awards and the credits, or the courage to change? Here's where it all lands for me. Unforgiven, the film that won Clint Oscars, is about a man trying to make peace with who he was. The Bridges of Madison County is about a guarded person letting love in. Those themes aren't just on screen anymore. They're in his life. Clint's legacy will always include hard-hitting films and quiet, tender stories. But this new chapter adds something different, a 95-year-old icon saying family matters, even if you speak up late. And Scott's arc proves a name helps open doors, but it doesn't do the work. He built a career, took the hits, kept going, and stayed respectful. For fans, the lesson feels simple and strong. It's never too late to connect. It's okay to admit you missed things. It's powerful to say you're proud. When I look back at Gran Torino now, the father-son energy hits different. Life imitates art, and sometimes it heals it. We've got one more beat to close this out, a final look at what this means for all of us right now. Today we watched a legend step out from behind the camera and into a harder role. Dad! Clint Eastwood at 95 finally opened up about his son Scott. He owned the distance, gave respect, and asked to make up for lost time. Scott met him with grace. That's not a Hollywood twist, that's a human one. We sifted through years of interviews and archives to bring you this story, and I'm glad you came along. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more true human moments from classic Hollywood, please like the video and subscribe. It helps this channel keep going. Thanks for watching. Here's my question as we wrap. If you had the chance to rewrite one chapter of your own family story, would you take it? And what would you say first? I'm Sarah Reed, and I'll see you in the next one. Share this with a friend who loves film history, and tell me which Hollywood family we should explore next. Until then, take care and keep the conversation going.